Gun owners are up in arms over proposed new rules that will change how shooting clubs operate. The measures by police are intended to strengthen safety and oversight, but firearm owners say it's likely to do the opposite. In fact, they say the rules are excessive beyond stupid. For more on this, Hugh Devereux-Mack of the Council of Licensed Firearms. Hugh joins us from Wellington. Good morning, Hugh.
Good morning.
Can I ask, one of the proposals we've been looking at this morning already is that under 16-year-olds would no longer be allowed to go to shooting ranges. How many under 16-year-olds do currently go to clubs?
Yeah, so in New Zealand we have quite an active group of young shooters, specifically around high school shooting teams. I know I was a member of the Marlborough Boys College shooting team when I was starting up, and that was a big influence as to where I am today and my safe education around how to use firearms. It's a big way that people actually get introduced to the sports initially because they offer it as they offered it as a class in the high school I went to. So it's hard to tell how many, but there are a few. If
young people were left to train at home with family, friends, I guess, what difference would that make?
I think the benefit of being at a range is that you are not only surrounded by expert instructors who can make sure that you get the formal education required to use firearms safely, but then you also have the culture of safety that's present at all firearms clubs, where you we have a very low rate of injuries in our sport, specifically because of the way we treat each other and our firearms.
What was it about shooting a gun when you were young, Hugh, that made you want to get into the club?
Yeah, so my firearms education started when I was 6. Dad took me rabbit shooting after I'd been put through a range and taught how to shoot and how to do things like safely cross a fence with a firearm, which is not unique for many farm kids around the country. For me, it was a thing that I got to do with my parents to help bond with them, and it also meant that we could help put and contribute food to the table, which I know is really important for New Zealand.
Do you think it is an essential skill that children under the age of 16 need to have in New Zealand?
I don't know if it's an essential skill that all children need to know, but with more than 250,000 licensed firearms owners around the country, I think that basic firearms safety is really important for people to know in case they come into a situation where they're surrounded or where they have a firearm available. Granted, it will generally always be under supervision because we're very responsible in New Zealand with our ownership, but it's important that people know that they're not toys and that people under the age of 16 can use them responsibly.
Okay, so this is one of the proposed changes that your council has issue with and is currently in consultation with and police. But there's other issues as well in terms of the information that clubs would have to provide to police. You say it's unnecessarily detrimental. I mean, this is information like providing rules around the safe operation of firearms in clubs, how the clubs go about concerns about any member no longer being fit to properly use firearms. What's wrong with providing that information to police?
I think the way that we provide that information was what's key there. Generally, the police had a very good working reputation with relationship with licensed firearms owners and clubs who would report any sort of problematic people through. But requiring it to be done in a very sterile paperwork form is going to, make that relationship a lot less organic and useful to police, but also put off the largely volunteer base from wanting to be part of a club committee because it would take so much time.
So do you think all clubs, are you confident that all clubs are safe and have gone through this list of information and have given their safety information to police?
It's hard to know because there are so many clubs around, so I couldn't obviously speak for all of them. The vast majority that Colfo know of are run by responsible licensed firearms owners who care about the sport and are really committed to the safety of not only their members, but the wider population as well.
There have already been changes to the Arms Act, and this is just one of the next step of changes in terms of the relevancy to shooting clubs. How confident are you that your voice is going to be heard and that you'll have some influence on these changes?
It's difficult to judge that in that we have made, the shooting community has come forward very strongly against things like the proposed register, and we've seen that being rolled out already. And so with a 50-page document on the clubs and range changes, that doesn't seem to give a lot of, although it seems like we're ticking boxes on paper, that the consultation process is happening, it will be hard to know whether that is actually taken on board. Historically, we're not optimistic.
Do you understand why there would be calls and why the police would be looking to tighten safety around guns in New Zealand?
Absolutely. With rising gun crimes being committed by criminals, everyone wants to feel safer in New Zealand. I think the problem is what we're looking to do to address that is by putting further restrictions on the people who were not the issue in the first place. For example, the requirement that every member of a gun club have an active firearms license when there are ram raids and drive-by shootings going on would mean that police resources would be dedicated to checking whether the 85-year-old tea lady has a firearms license rather than going after criminals actually doing the harm in our communities.
Yeah, and that is one of the proposals, although the discussion document does say, you know, would you prefer all members to be licensed or would you prefer majority? So there are still some, there's some wriggle room there still. And the consultation is open until the 4th of May. Council of Licensed Firearm Owners spokesperson Hugh Devereux-Mack. Thanks for joining us, Hugh.